The apartment was silent until Laura said, "You lied to me again, Jason." Her words shook as she clutched little Emily in her arms. Jason shouted, "You never trusted me, Laura." His face twisted with rage, and the air seemed to vibrate with betrayal. The slam of the front door rattled the walls as Jason stormed out, leaving a storm behind him. Sirens wailed faintly in the distance, blending with the sound of Laura's sobs. She held Emily tighter, whispering, "I will protect you." The weight of the night pressed in, a thick reminder that nothing would ever be the same. Fear and despair swirled in Laura's mind, but so did something deeper: determination. She had sacrificed everything for Emily, and betrayal would not break her. The echo of Jason's anger lingered like smoke, but Laura stood in the doorway, trembling and unyielding. Her heart raced, her spirit cracked, but her resolve was growing stronger. Laura sat at the kitchen table, the silence pressing in like a heavy weight. Emily leaned against her, asking softly, "Mom, are we safe?" Laura whispered, "Yes, Emily, you're safe with me." The sirens faded, leaving only the hum of the refrigerator. Laura's heart pounded as she thought of the betrayal, each memory sharp as glass. Jason's words still cut deep, but her resolve began to take root. She told herself, "This will not destroy us." Emily fiddled with her blanket, eyes wide with lingering fear. Laura stroked her hair gently, promising silently that no one would ever break their bond. The night stretched long as Laura cleaned the broken frame Jason had knocked over. Emily asked, "Will Dad come back?" Laura paused, her voice steady but breaking inside. "He chose to leave, Emily, but we'll be okay." Her hands shook as she gathered the shards, every piece a reminder of what was lost. She thought of years spent holding the family together, only to watch it shatter. Still, she forced a smile for Emily, saying, "We'll make this place safe again." Laura tucked Emily into bed, brushing hair back gently. Emily whispered, "I don't want to dream tonight." Laura said, "Close your eyes, baby. I'll be here." She sat at the bedside long after Emily drifted off, listening to the soft rhythm of her breathing. Alone in the dark, Laura's chest ached. Her thoughts spun with fear of what Jason might do next. But as Emily stirred in sleep, Laura's hand lingered protectively on her blanket, a vow forming deep inside. The apartment finally fell quiet. Laura stood at the window, watching city lights flicker in the distance. Her reflection stared back, weary but unbroken. She whispered, "We will be stronger, Emily." Behind her, the small figure of Emily slept soundly, unaware of the storm inside her mother's heart. Laura pressed her forehead to the cold glass, drawing strength from the silence. The night felt endless, yet a spark of resilience glowed in her chest. She knew tomorrow would bring battles, but tonight she had survived. The morning sun crept into the apartment, but Laura felt none of its warmth. She brewed coffee while Emily sat at the small table drawing quietly. Emily asked, "Will you come to my school today?" Laura forced a smile and said, "Yes, sweetheart, I'll be there." The weight of her promise pressed heavily, knowing she had to juggle 2 shifts just to keep rent paid. Laura thought of Jason's bitter words, still echoing, but she straightened her shoulders. She whispered to herself, "We move forward." The day ahead promised challenges, but Laura's eyes flicked to Emily's innocent face, and she found her strength again. At the school gate, Laura kissed Emily on the forehead. Emily clung to her briefly and whispered, "Don't be late, Mom." Laura nodded, saying softly, "I promise." The bell rang, and Emily hurried inside, her small figure swallowed by the crowd of children. Laura stood still, watching until she disappeared, heart aching. She turned away, determination masking exhaustion, as she walked quickly toward the bus stop. Inside her chest, fear and courage wrestled. She knew the day was only beginning. Laura arrived at the diner where she worked, apron tied tight around her waist. Her friend Sarah smiled warmly and said, "You look like you've had no sleep." Laura sighed. "It's been rough, Sarah. But I'll manage." Sarah replied, "You always do." The clatter of dishes and hum of voices surrounded them, Yet Laura's mind raced with worry about bills. A man in a booth glanced up, eyeing her with recognition. Jason's lawyer, Richard, who would soon challenge her in court. Laura's hands trembled as she carried plates, but she kept moving, determined not to falter. Later, Sarah pulled Laura aside and whispered, "You need help. You can't do this alone." Laura answered, "I don't have a choice. Emily depends on me." Sarah pressed her hand on Laura's arm, saying firmly, "You're stronger than you think, but let people in." Laura swallowed hard, unsure how to admit she was breaking inside. The weight of unpaid bills, the looming custody fight, and Jason's manipulations pressed in. Yet, in Sarah's eyes, she saw a glimmer of support she hadn't realized she needed. That evening, Laura returned home with Emily. The apartment felt smaller than ever, the silence thick with tension. Emily showed Laura a crayon drawing of the two of them, holding hands beneath a bright sun. Emily said, "See, Mom, it's us happy again." Laura's throat tightened as she pulled Emily into her lap, whispering, "We will be happy again, I promise." She placed the drawing on the fridge, as though anchoring hope to its surface. Despite exhaustion and fear, Laura felt a spark ignite. She realized her battle wasn't only about surviving. It was about proving to Emily that love was stronger than betrayal. Laura stood at the office doorway, clutching her bag. Her boss, Mr. Carter, looked up and said, "Laura, you've been late too many times. This can't continue." Her chest tightened, but she replied, "I'm trying, Mr. Carter. I just need a little more time." His stern face softened slightly, but he shook his head. "I'm under pressure too." Laura left his office with trembling hands, the weight of responsibility pressing harder. She thought of Emily and whispered, "I will not let us lose everything." Later that evening, Sarah visited Laura's apartment with groceries in her arms. Sarah said, "I knew you wouldn't ask, so I brought dinner." Laura's eyes filled with tears as she whispered, "You didn't have to." Sarah smiled. "That's what friends do." Emily rushed to the door, hugging Sarah tightly, and said, "You're the best, Aunt Sarah." The three of them sat together, the small table filled with laughter and warmth for the first time in days. For a moment, the storm outside their lives felt distant. The next day, Laura met Sarah at a cafe. Sarah leaned in and whispered, "Jason has been meeting with people behind your back." Laura's stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" she asked. Sarah continued, "He's been talking to Richard and I think he's planning something ugly for custody." Laura's hands shook as she gripped her coffee cup. She said softly, "He'll do anything to win, won't he?" Sarah placed her hand over Laura's, saying, "Then you have to be stronger." That night, Laura tucked Emily into bed. Emily asked softly, "Why is Dad so mad at you?" Laura smoothed her hair and replied gently, "Sometimes people make choices that hurt others, but it's not your fault." Emily whispered, "Will he take me away?" Laura kissed her forehead and said firmly, "No, Emily, no one will ever take you from me." Tears pricked Laura's eyes, but she held them back. She sat beside Emily until her daughter's breathing softened into sleep, vowing silently to protect her at any cost. The following morning, Laura discovered a letter slipped under her door. It was from Jason's lawyer, Richard. Her hands trembled as she read the words, "We will be pursuing full custody." Her vision blurred with tears, the paper shaking in her grip. Emily ran to her side asking, "What's wrong?" Laura folded the letter quickly and smiled faintly. "Nothing you need to worry about, sweetheart," she said, but inside her chest burned with panic. She whispered to herself, "It's starting." Laura sat alone at the kitchen table late at night, staring at a faded photo she had tucked away years ago. Emily's soft breathing drifted from the bedroom. Laura whispered, "I thought I buried this." The picture showed her estranged brother Clark, who had disappeared after betraying the family years ago. The memory sliced through her like a blade. She thought of his lies, his absence, and the silence that followed. Tears welled up as she said quietly, "Why now? Why again?" Her chest ached with the weight of the past resurfacing. She pressed the photo flat on the table, knowing secrets had a way of clawing back into the present. The next day, Laura was leaving work when she froze. Standing near the corner of the diner was Clark, his face older but unmistakable. Her breath caught as he stepped forward. "Laura," he said softly. She stiffened, clutching her bag. "Why are you here?" she demanded. Clark lowered his eyes and replied, "I've been watching, and I know you're in trouble." Rage flared inside her, memories rushing back. "You left us, Clark," she hissed. "You don't get to show up now." His eyes held guilt, but also a strange determination. Later that evening, Sarah sat with Laura in the apartment living room. Laura's hands trembled as she explained. Clark came back. "After all these years." Sarah's eyes widened. "Do you trust him?" Laura shook her head, saying, "No, but he knows something about Jason. He wouldn't have come otherwise." Sarah leaned forward, warning, "Secrets never return without a cost, Laura. Be careful." Laura stared at the floor, her mind tangled between fear and the faint hope that Clark's presence might hold answers. Laura met Clark in a quiet park under gray skies. Leaves rustled as Clark said, "Jason has been using people you don't know, people from my past." Laura's heart pounded. "Why should I believe you?" she asked sharply. Clark sighed, "Because I made mistakes, but I won't let him destroy you." Laura's jaw tightened as she turned her gaze away. "You've already destroyed enough?" she whispered. Clark lowered his head, the silence between them heavy with regret. That night, Laura dreamed of her mother's voice, soft and haunting. In the dream, her late mother said, "You cannot run from truth, Laura." Laura saw flashes of her childhood home, Clark's laughter, and her mother's gentle smile. The images twisted into Jason's angry face, shouting threats. She woke gasping, drenched in sweat, Emily sleeping peacefully beside her. Laura whispered into the darkness, "I will face this. I will not let betrayal define us." Laura sat in the diner booth with Clark across from her, the air between them thick with unspoken truths. Clark leaned forward and said, "Jason has been working with people who once worked with me." Laura's eyes widened. "What do you mean?" she asked. Clark swallowed hard, replying, "He found old debts of mine, and now he's using them against you." Laura's hands trembled as she whispered, "So your mistakes have come back to haunt me?" Clark's voice cracked as he said, "I came back because I owe you, Laura. I will help you fight." Laura clenched her jaw, her anger clashing with a flicker of hope. That evening, Sarah came to Laura's apartment after hearing about Clark. Sarah said sharply, "You can't trust him, Laura. He left once, he'll leave again." Laura stood by the window, staring at the city lights. "He knows Jason's game, Sarah. He may be the only chance I have." Sarah shook her head and replied, "You're letting desperation cloud your judgment." Emily appeared in the doorway holding her stuffed toy, asking, "Why is everyone so angry?" Laura forced a smile and whispered, "It's nothing, baby, just grown-up talk." But her heart was already tangled in doubt. The next day, Laura faced Jason in the courthouse hallway. Jason smirked and said, "You don't stand a chance, Laura. Richard will tear you apart." Laura lifted her chin, responding, "I'm not afraid of you anymore." Jason's eyes narrowed as he hissed, "You should be." Clark stepped out of the shadows, saying firmly, "Not this time, Jason." Jason froze, recognizing him. The tension crackled as Laura felt both dread and determination. For the first time, she realized Jason was not as untouchable as he believed. That night, Laura confronted Clark in the apartment. "Why didn't you tell me everything?" she demanded. Clark lowered his head, replying, "Because I was ashamed. Jason has leverage over me, but I won't let him use it against you anymore." Laura's voice trembled. "Your silence could cost me Emily." Clark's eyes filled with regret as he said, "Then let me fix it, Laura. Let me stand beside you." She stared at him, torn between fury and the desperate need for an ally. The silence that followed felt heavier than words. The following morning, Laura stood in the courtroom, papers clutched tightly. Richard watched her with sharp eyes, Jason smirking at his side. Clark sat quietly behind her, ready to speak if called. The judge entered, gavel striking, and silence filled the room. Laura whispered under her breath, "For Emily." Her heart pounded, but her gaze never wavered. She knew the truth would come out soon. She knew betrayal would no longer break her. The courtroom filled with tension as Laura sat at the plaintiff's table, her hands clutching the edge tightly. Jason leaned toward Richard and smirked, his confidence unshaken. Judge Richard struck the gavel and said, "We begin." Laura's lawyer had not arrived, leaving her exposed. Jason's attorney rose and began to outline their argument, painting Laura as unstable and unfit. Laura's pulse thundered in her ears as she whispered, "Stay strong, Emily needs me." Clark shifted behind her, prepared to stand if needed. The battle had officially begun, and every word now held the weight of Emily's future. Jason took the stand, his voice smooth as he told the court, "Laura is unstable and cannot provide a proper home for Emily." Laura's jaw tightened, her nails digging into her palms. She whispered, "He lies." Richard guided Jason with practiced precision, highlighting fabricated stories of neglect. Laura wanted to scream, but held her silence. Clark leaned forward and muttered, "He's twisting everything." Laura forced her gaze forward, knowing her turn would come. Every accusation felt like a knife, but she refused to break under the weight of Jason's words. Finally, Laura rose to speak, her hands trembling but her voice steady. "I have given everything to Emily. Every choice I made was for her safety and her future," she said. Jason scoffed, muttering, "She's lying." Judge Richard silenced him with a sharp look. Laura continued, "Yes, I've struggled, but I have never abandoned my child." Her eyes brimmed with tears, yet her voice grew stronger. "Emily is my heart, my fight, my reason for everything." The courtroom fell quiet, the power of her words piercing through the noise of accusation. Clark unexpectedly rose, asking permission to speak. Judge Richard hesitated before allowing it. Clark said, "Jason is lying. He is using my past to manipulate this case. I failed my family once, but I won't stand by again." Jason shouted angrily, "He's a criminal, his words mean nothing." Clark's voice shook but held firm. "Jason blackmailed me, and I have proof." Gasps filled the courtroom as he handed over documents. Laura turned toward him, tears streaming, whispering, "Thank you, Clark." For the first time, Jason's smirk faltered. The climax hit as Judge Richard called for silence. Jason's face flushed with rage, his lies unraveling. Laura whispered, "This is for Emily," as she closed her eyes briefly to steady herself. The judge turned toward Jason and said sternly, "Your credibility is damaged beyond repair." Jason slammed his hand on the table, shouting, "This isn't over." Laura exhaled, her body trembling, but her spirit unbroken. The truth was finally surfacing, and justice no longer seemed out of reach. The courtroom echoed with the weight of the moment. The courtroom was silent, as Judge Richard cleared his throat. His voice echoed, "After careful review, custody will remain with Laura." Laura's breath caught as relief washed over her. Emily clutched Sarah's hand, smiling brightly. Jason slammed his fist against the table, his anger boiling, but the ruling stood. Laura whispered, "We did it," her voice trembling with victory and exhaustion. Clark exhaled deeply, finally lifting the weight of his past. The gavel struck one last time, sealing the decision that would change their lives forever. Outside the courthouse, Laura stood holding Emily's hand. Sarah hugged them tightly and said, "You're free now." Laura's eyes filled with tears as she whispered, "Free, but scarred." Clark stepped forward, his expression heavy with guilt. "I'll never make up for the past, but I'll be here if you let me," he said. Laura nodded slowly, her heart torn between pain and forgiveness. Emily looked up and said softly, "Can we go home now, Mom?" Laura smiled faintly, replying, "Yes, sweetheart, home." That evening, the apartment was quiet, as Laura placed Emily's crayon drawing back on the fridge. Emily smiled, pointing at the bright sun in the picture, saying, "See, we're happy again." Laura hugged her tightly and whispered, "Yes, we are." The silence carried no weight this time, only peace. Laura glanced at the window where city lights flickered, but they no longer felt threatening. Instead, they marked a new beginning. Sarah poured tea in the kitchen, offering a supportive smile. For the first time, the apartment felt like a sanctuary again. Later, Laura tucked Emily into bed. Emily asked softly, "Will Dad come back?" Laura stroked her hair and replied, "Maybe one day, but he won't hurt us anymore." Emily's eyes closed as she whispered, "Promise." Laura kissed her forehead and said firmly, "Promise." She sat watching Emily's gentle breathing, her heart steady for the first time in years. Clark stood quietly in the doorway, not intruding, just present. Laura gave him a nod, silently acknowledging his choice to stand with them. Near midnight, Laura stood by the window holding a cup of tea, the city lights stretching endlessly. She whispered, "We're stronger now, Emily." Behind her, Emily slept soundly, her small breath steady. Laura placed her hand gently on the bedroom doorframe, a vow etched in silence. Sarah had already left for the night, and Clark's shadow faded down the street outside. Alone, Laura felt no fear, only strength. A smile spread across her face, real and unbroken. The battle was over, but her resolve had only begun.